welcome to worship with the Unitarian Universalist community of Charlotte. I'm Eve Stevens. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm one of the ministers of this congregation. During today's service, we will hear from guest speaker Reverend Mary Catherine Mourn. Mary Catherine is the president and CEO of the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee. If you're not familiar with the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, or UUSC, this is our faith's international disaster relief and human rights organization. The UUSC was founded during World War II to assist European refugees fleeing Nazi violence and persecution. Later in the service, we'll hear stories of the work the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee is doing today, partnering with grassroots organizations and movements around the world in the work of intersectional justice. Whether you are a longtime Unitarian Universalist or a guest here today just beginning to get to know us, you'll learn more about what it looks like to courageously live our Unitarian Universalist values in partnership with others around the world. Now I invite you to head to our public Facebook page to exchange welcome greetings with one another in the comments section under the welcome post. We light this chalice, symbol of our liberating faith, with the words of Kendall Gibbons. The prophets of all traditions and times have taught that we are called to mercy, generosity, and mutual care. We know that there can be no enduring happiness for humanity so long as suffering and want go unrelieved. May the power of our shared faith sustain us in this work, that we may be the hands of holy creativity and justice, and together build a better world. Good morning, Mary Catherine.
Good morning, Eve. Great to see you.
Great to see you too. And this is nothing like would be my ideal. I wish we could welcome you in the sanctuary and you could see people's faces in person, but this will have to do.
I'm so glad to be with you, even though I'm not able to be in beautiful Charlotte in early April, where I know it actually feels like spring, unlike the way it feels in Boston in early April.
It's stunning. That's actually one of my favorite parts of being here. So you'll have to come down in person sometime in the future.
I look forward to that. I would love it.
So I wanted the congregation to have a chance to just get a snapshot of who you are and what you do as our service leader this morning. And I also wanted to share, members and guests, with you that I know Mary Catherine Moore for almost a decade now. I don't know if you were doing the math. But Mary Catherine was my internship supervisor as part of my ministry process, becoming a minister, and continues to be a wonderful mentor whenever our paths cross. And I'm just delighted that you can be here with us and that we get to work on this service together.
It's a real joy for me and members and guests. I'm happy to be able to say how much I love Eve and how lucky I think you are to have her as one of your ministers. It was one of the great blessings of being in congregational ministry to work with students, and Eve is one of the smartest and most gifted, and actually one of my interns that I can say ministered to me during her internship. So I know you're blessed to have her as one of your ministers. And also just a shout out, if I may, to Jay, and gratitude for this opportunity to be in Charlotte in this way. Jay and I have known each other for a long time, since 2003, when he came to Charlotte, because my early years of ministry were served in the Southeast. And so we had the opportunity to get to know one another as colleagues. And I value Jay as a colleague for all of these years as well.
That's right. You have because Jay and I both grew up in the Southeast. You're what, same. We've got that Southern ministers together. Well, I was hoping too that you could just tell us a little bit about your background. I know we worked together your last year in parish ministry.
It wasn't causal. It wasn't because of you that I left the parish ministry.
That's exactly. I'm glad you just said what you said. Otherwise, it's like after Eve, there was just no going back. But no. Then you've done denominational work ever since. You worked with the Stewardship and Development Office and as special advisor to the president of the Unitarian Universalist Association. And that was really the last time before working on this service that we had a proper catch up. So I know justice has always been integral to your work and your love of ministry. So I'd love to hear, how do you come to be where you are?
Thanks for that. Congregational parish ministry was just the love of my life, and I did it for almost 30 years. And believing that the impact of congregational ministry is really what causes change in the world and creates change in us and makes transformation possible. So that will always be where my heart is. And when I was coming to the end of my time at the UUA, I was thinking I would move back into congregational ministry, but the opportunity to work with the service committee was this unexpected gift that brought together a lifelong desire to be working in advocacy and social change with communities of faith. I had always been supportive of UUSC in the congregations I served. We did Guest at Your Table, and I was myself a donor and a member of the service committee. But when I actually started looking into what the job would be and really what UUSC is, I was so amazed to learn the breadth and the depth of the work that UUSC does, and actually a little heartbroken, because for those 30 years, I had not understood the impact of our Unitarian Universalist human rights organization in the world, which has just been tremendous for our 80 years of history now. And so taking on this position, my passion has been that I don't want other ministers to go through their ministry and other Unitarian Universalists without some level of understanding of the work that UUSC is able to do in the world and the work that all of our members and congregations make possible. I'd love to tell you a little bit about kind of the heart of the work right now.
That'd be great. That would be wonderful.
So currently, I've been at UUSC almost 3 years now, and the strategy that's in place now has been in place for about 4 years. And actually looking at your website, it really does tie together well, because there's an understanding of intersectionality that not all congregations really understand, or all people. And that's UUSC's areas of work really kind of create the reality of intersectionality in the work that we do for justice. So currently, there are 3 main areas of work that we do, areas of focus issues. Migrant justice is one, crisis justice, and disaster justice. And the congregation in Charlotte actually participated with us in 2010 in our work responding to the Haiti earthquake.
Oh.
Some of you may remember supporting UUSC's efforts there. That project actually just finished 2 years ago. So it was a long-term process of recovery and creating justice out of disaster. And then the third area is environmental justice. And our work within environmental justice focuses on climate forced displacement. So again, the intersectionality of migration and climate, and also lack of representation. So the primary communities we work with in our climate justice work are Indigenous communities. Communities, of course, that we all know had almost nothing to do with creating the crisis that we're facing, but whose communities are, and whose way of life are at tremendous risk because of the crisis of our climate. So migrant justice, disaster justice, and environmental justice. And we do this through our partnerships. We follow the lead of grassroots partners. We provide grants. We facilitate convenings to gather together people working on similar issues across geographic areas. We do justice education with Unitarian Universalists through the College of Social Justice, which is a shared enterprise with the UUA. And then, of course, advocacy as well, both on the international and the domestic level. So that's a little bit of a snapshot of the work we do. And I look forward to sharing a little more kind of in story form in the sermon about the impact of our work. And just to say, none of it's possible without our individual members. UUSC is an independent organization completely funded by individual Unitarian Universalists and other progressive people.
That's wonderful. And I know those of you members and guests who have been interested in us for a while and maybe have participated in some of our programming, that probably resonates deeply with you. So bring your curiosity, and having spent a year hearing you preach and learning from you, I'm looking forward to the sermon, and really appreciate again you being with us, Mary Catherine. It's an honor to have you here.
Thank you so much, Eve.
Hi, friends. It's great to all be together even while we're staying in our homes. Today, I want to tell you a story about how the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, or UUSC, began. It all started 80 years ago when Unitarians in the United States were watching what was happening in Europe, and they were getting very worried. They were worried because a man named Hitler and the people he was leading, people called the Nazis, were becoming very powerful and hurting a lot of people. The Nazis believed some very mean and wrong things. They believed that the only people who were any good were people who were just like them. They wanted everyone to be the same as they were, and if you weren't, well, they would kick you out of your house, they would take all of your things, they wouldn't let you work. And eventually the Nazis started killing a lot of people who they thought were different from them. Jewish people, gay people, people with disabilities, all of them were targets of the Nazis during this time. It was very scary. What do you think you would do if you saw something like this happening? Would you want to help? Would people in your UU community want to help too? It was the same 80 years ago. The Unitarians wanted to help people in Europe who were being targeted by the Nazis. So, a Unitarian minister and his wife from Wellesley, Massachusetts, Waitstill and Martha Sharp, went to Europe to see how they could help the people there. They found lots of ways to help when they got there, but they had to be creative because the Nazis were always watching, and it would be very dangerous if they got caught. The Sharps helped get paperwork to people that they needed to escape to safer places. Sometimes they would even sneak people past the Nazi guards wearing disguises. They also helped people, including kids like you, get food and clothing at a time when it was very hard to find both. The Sharps were very brave, but they didn't do this work alone. They worked with people in the Jewish communities in Europe, and they worked with other Unitarians in the United States who would send them money and other supplies so more people in Europe could be helped. That is how the Unitarian Service Committee, now called UUSC, got started. Today, UUSC is still working around the world to help people who are being treated badly find safety and have their human rights respected. We work with migrant communities who fled their homes in Central America and are seeking asylum in the United States. We work with Rohingya Muslims from Burma who are facing inhumane treatment and displacement by their government. We work with people around the world whose home communities are threatened by climate change, and many, many more. Both 80 years ago and today, UU's come together through the UU Service Committee to work with people who need it most. And we will continue to be there to help into the future, because Unitarian Universalists believe in doing what we can to make the world a better and safer place for everyone. Thank you for all the ways you help us do this work. We couldn't do it without everyone joining together. So grateful that you're here. Thanks for listening to this story. Bye.
It's been a week filled with signs. I'm sure you've seen them too. Eve was thoughtful not to describe in too much detail the warmth and color that are signaling your Charlotte spring. Every April, I grieve my years of experiencing spring in the South. But in Boston, I am learning a new way to experience spring and developing character, I think, along with patience, and maybe a finer eye for the subtle signs. In addition, there are signs of recovery in the form of growing access in this country to the coronavirus vaccine. These signs, of course, are not uncomplicated. My favorite, mostly uncomplicated sign of spring and new life happens at the ballpark. I'm reluctant to bring this up, though, on the chance that Jay is listening. I can just see his winning smile thinking of how his team battered my team in a series this week. But we both know it's just the beginning of a long season, way too soon for friendly taunts. Even with the Washington Nationals' early losses, I am deeply grateful for the signs of new life and new thought that have been budding these last weeks. I'm also grateful for Jay's Easter admonition in last week's sermon. The gift I took from your sermon, Jay, was the reminder that I also need to be looking out for the signs of new life and new thought that make me uneasy, that remind me that courageous connection, which is another way to say love, undoubtedly means some upending to my comfortable assumptions and understandings, and that true liberation does not arise from places of power and privilege. Thank you, Jay, for that Easter admonition and for the call to hear new stories. I have tried to take that to heart this week, and it gives me strength for the work we do at UUSC. It is resonant with what we strive for in our work for human rights. For over 80 years, UUSC has been working for human rights around the world, partnering with grassroots organizations that are addressing injustice, inequity, violence, persecution, a climate crisis, and even genocide. And for the last year, of course, our partners are also facing the devastating impacts of the global pandemic. But that isn't the only story I want to share. For today, my stories begin and end with UUSC grassroots partners who have imagination and courage. Partners who create change, bringing more justice to their communities and our world every day. At UUSC, we have learned that enduring solutions to the crises of violence, inequity, climate change, and displacement, which cause mass migration, always rise up from communities facing these crises. With the help of our members, we support these solutions through funding, supporting connections through convenings, advocacy on the domestic and international fronts, participatory research, and strategic communication. Today, the work of our partners focuses on climate-forced displacement, crisis response, and migrant justice. While these initiatives may seem unrelated at first glance, they are, of course, intricately interconnected. These issues are about the right to security within our homes, the right to restore our homes when they are ravaged by natural or human-made disaster, and the right to seek new homes elsewhere. UUSC's work for human rights is grounded in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and in our Unitarian Universalist principles. In the fundamental and non-negotiable dignity, worth, and power of all people, which calls us to courageous connection. If we lived in full and vivid awareness of how we are connected, our world would be a different place. I forget this every day, but I am grateful for the admonition to ask myself to watch for the new life, the new way that is making me uneasy, uncertain. The connection I am resisting, or the story I am turning away from. Because those are the places where liberation is stirring. Just weeks before the pandemic was declared, I was in Myanmar and Malaysia visiting some of UUSC's grassroots partners who are working for the liberation and safety of the Rohingya people. For 40 years, the government in Burma has subjected the Rohingya people to inhumane persecutions and genocide. The campaign of hate against them, encouraged by the Buddhist monks, has resulted in nearly 1 million people forced to flee their homes or held in camps in the country. In 2017, over 250 Rohingya villages were destroyed by the military, leaving unknown tens of thousands dead. The military's brutality was well known before the events of the last few months. Most memorable on our visit was Sittwe on the western coast of Burma. This view you're seeing is from my hotel, and it gives you a taste of the natural beauty of the place. The natural beauty, though, tells only part of the story of Sittwe and Rakhine State. Rakhine State is home to many of the hundreds of villages that were destroyed by the army 3 years ago in what many are calling genocide. We spent only one day there, carefully moving about so as not to draw too much attention to our visit. We spent the morning with our partners, including sitting in on a civic education class of young adults, part of the wonderful work UUSC is helping to fund. The group was a mixed group, ethnically and religiously, a rare opportunity for young people in Burma to build community and learn together in a diverse cohort. For lunch, our host drove us to a beachfront spot. He and his colleagues brightened as they shared the traditions of seafood and outdoor dining. Our time together was intimate and authentic, joyful, a time of peace and kinship. And over the fish soup, our partners shared the fierce vision they hold of a world with justice and equity for all. One of them shared stories from activism that had led to 5 years as a political prisoner. I know that many like them are imprisoned again. I pray for their safety and for the power of their vision. We also found a fierce and courageous vision among our partners in Malaysia, home to almost 200,000 Rohingya refugees. There, UUSC partner Rohingya Women's Development Network is providing support, education, and advocacy for this massive refugee community. Fatima is one of the teachers at RWD Inn. She's the woman on the left in the flowered hijab. I've thought of her many times since our visit. She was lucky to escape Burma, but she'd rather be home. I thought that it must be a great blessing to have UN refugee status, but in fact, it means very little. Working is not allowed. Children are not permitted to attend schools, and actually just walking in the streets makes one vulnerable to abuse by the police. Still, in the face of all of this, Fatima and her colleagues are building community, providing skills and civic education for other Rohingya women, and in these ways and others, helping each other imagine a world where they are free to enjoy the rights most of us give little thought to. One of the sadnesses Fatima and her colleagues shared was the difficulty they have reaching family who are left behind in Burma. The communication blackouts were making it difficult for them to be in touch. And this was before the pandemic was declared and before the February 1st military coup. I can only imagine the weight on Fatima's heart as her worries have grown for those left behind. The military coup exposed the fragility of Myanmar's democracy, well known already to ethnic and religious minorities who have experienced their brutality. When I think of all that has changed in the year and 2 months since I was there, I am deeply humbled by how hard it's been for me to manage the changes last year have brought to my own life. I invite you to consider the changes in your life for a moment, to reflect, holding the loss, the fear, the wounds revealed, the repair needed. What is on your heart as you look back at this year? What is in your heart as you look forward to new life, to healing, to restoration? I am holding the people of Burma and all of us. On Tuesday, we learned that an activist in Burma, supported by UUSC, has safely crossed the border into Thailand with their family. It isn't the last barrier or border they will face, but we are hopeful that the support we've provided in the last month has helped them and others find safety in these very dangerous times of the military's coup and violent suppression of protests. Some in Burma need to be in hiding now. And yet there is a new generation who are taking to the streets, carrying the risk for this new day. And there is tremendous hope among many that the new generation of democracy activists are embracing the cause of religious and ethnic minorities like never before. From all of this and other insights from a year of loss and learning, I am finding the spring is breaking this year with a different energy. The perspective, as always, of remembering what is beautiful, precious, and essential, but also an awakening to what could yet be held as precious, beautiful, and essential, and how we together have the power to imagine and create a world that may be new. A world, a humanity that affirms, embraces, and sacrifices for the sake of love and liberation. Arundhati Roy, the novelist and activist for human rights, writes from her home in India, where the perspective on this global crisis, this pandemic, has been the same as the perspective other places and so very different. In her essay, Pandemic is a Portal, she begins by asking, who can ever use the term gone viral now without shuddering just a little? In her essay, she helps us focus on both the equalizing nature of the pandemic and the nonsense of notions of equality in the devastating disparities that have revealed unmistakably our tolerance for inequity and injustice. She writes, "The tragedy is immediate, real, epic, and unfolding before our eyes. But it isn't new. It is the wreckage of a train that has been careening down the track for years." Then she invites us to reimagine what is possible, to use our power and our energy for the sake of liberation. Historically, she writes, pandemics have forced humans to break with the past and imagine their world anew. This one is no different. It's a portal, a gateway between one world and the next. We can choose to walk through it, dragging the carcasses of our prejudice and hatred, our avarice, our databanks and dead ideas, our dead rivers and smoky skies behind us. Or we can walk through lightly with little luggage, ready to imagine another world, ready to fight for it. I am grateful to learn every day from UUSC partners the power of imagination and the possibility of another world. I know that you strive for this vision in Charlotte through your own work for intersectional justice. I give thanks for all that you do to help bring it into being. I hope you will also consider making UUSC one of the ways you are using your power and imagination to create justice. New life is struggling to be born. A new vision is carried in the streets and in the hearts of people who are risking their lives for the sake of liberation. May their stories, their vision grow in us and change us. And together, may we go lightly, with little luggage, forging courageous connections toward a world with justice for all. May it be so.
Ponseaba mupokele la balipele maka kubabana Ponseyaba mupokelela palipele maka akubabana.
Ponseyaba mupokelela palipele maka akubabana.
Ponseyaba mupokelela palipele maka akubabana.
Kubabana.
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 Pakwalesa.
Kubabana.
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 Pakwalesa.
Kubabana.
Kubabana. Kubabana. Pakwalesa.
Kubabana.
Kubabana. Kubabana. Pakwalesa.
Ponseyaba mupokelela palipele maka akubabana.
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 Kubabana.
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 Pakwalesa.
Kubabana.
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 Pakwalesa.
Muyayaya.
Muyayaya. Muyayaya. Pakwalesa.
Muyayaya.
Muyayaya. Muyayaya. Pakwalesa.
Good morning and welcome. We are glad to have you with us today. I am Membership Coordinator Kelly Green. If you are new and you want to learn a little bit more about this community, here are some options. If you haven't already, we hope you'll sign up for our newsletter Currents. That is a great way to find out what's happening in this community. You can sign up at www.uuccharlotte.org. And if you are new, please know that almost everything is open to you too, and we hope that you'll join in. We are also offering a special in-person outdoor masked session for visitors and new members, April 17th. It's a Saturday afternoon, so that you can meet our ministers, Eve and Jay, and you can learn more about Unitarian Universalism and this community and see our grounds and the outside of our building. We really hope that you will join us for that. We do ask that you sign up. There is more information on our Facebook page and also in our newsletter Currents. You can message me about this or anything that you have questions about through my post on the Facebook page. You can email me at kelly@uuccharlotte.org. If you would like to get in touch with one of the ministers, you can message me and I will get you in touch. Again, thank you so much for being with us today. I hope I get to meet you soon.
If you explore our website and subscribe to our weekly e-newsletter Currents, you'll find all kinds of ongoing ways to engage with the life of this congregation. Following the service, there are two competing virtual opportunities for you to take part in. You can join our Right Relations Task Force to review and give your feedback on the draft covenant they've crafted for our spiritual community. There'll be a few opportunities to do that in the coming weeks. You can also head to Coffee Hour for an opportunity to talk with our guest speaker, Mary Catherine Morn, and to ask any questions you might have about the Unitarian Universalist Committee. In community, we hold one another. And the shooting this week in Rock Hill, South Carolina, that left 5 people dead, 2 of them children, shook our larger community. Knowing many of you live and work in Rock Hill and feel particularly affected by this, particularly aware of the families and networks of people mourning this tragic loss of life most intimately. Know that we hold you and one another with love and in our prayers, and aware that gun violence is an ongoing source of fear and death in Charlotte. We continue to hold our larger community with love and in our prayers. This morning, we are sending love to Mary Ellen Brooke, as both her mother and father are now in the care of hospice. We hold in our prayers Brenda and Lloyd Dillon, as Lloyd recovers from surgery and as Brenda is now under the care of hospice. We hold in our hearts Annie Flint, as she recovers from a medical procedure. We are sending love to Bob and Jane Gorman and their family as they mourn the death of Bob's sister. We hold in our prayers Terry Grancy, as she is now under the care of hospice. We hold in our hearts Nancy and Rich Green and their family as Nancy's son John enters the care of hospice. We're sending love to Michael Kelly and Rob Marcy as Michael's sister recovers from a medical procedure. We hold in our prayers Wendy Pond as she navigates recent health challenges. We hold in our hearts Julie Prentice as she recovers from multiple medical procedures at home. We are sending love to the family and friends of our member, Morty Rubel, and join them in mourning his death. We hold in our prayers Mimi Vollum as she recovers from surgery. And of course, it's always a good week, but perhaps this week in particular, to look up someone you haven't heard from in a while or heard about in our congregational member directory. Send them a note, let them know you're thinking about them. The work of the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee around the world is sustained by financial contributions from the members of Unitarian Universalist congregations. As you practice generosity this week, please take a moment to share your gifts with the UUSC to support their work of love and liberation beyond borders. I invite you into a time of meditation. Close your eyes and drink in the stillness and the quiet for a few moments. As you breathe deeply, I offer you these words by Unitarian Universalist minister Mark Morrison Reed. The central task of the religious community is to unveil the bonds that bind each to all. There is a connectedness, a relationship discovered amid the particulars of our own lives and the lives of others. Once felt, it inspires us to act for justice. It is the spiritual community that assures us that we are not struggling for justice on our own, but as members of a larger community. The religious community is essential, for alone our vision is too narrow to see all that must be seen, and our strength too limited to do all that must be done. Together, our vision widens and our strength is renewed. Amen. Be well and reach out when you need us.